Okay, let's talk about the LSAT. It is awful. Trust me, I know. If you are preparing for it, or you've taken it, maybe you're taking it again, I don't know. The LSAT sucks. I don't know how else to say it. Before we get into this, I just wanted to say welcome back to my channel. Thanks for watching, and hey. Good news is, since I took it, or I guess since I got into law school, I have not thought about it once. So if you're stressing out about it, just know that once it's over, it really is over. It never comes back to haunt you. Honestly, nobody cares about it once you're in. Okay, so my experience taking the LSAT, I took it twice. This is an obvious tip. If you're taking it, take it with enough time to take it again, which I'm sure people know, just in case you're not happy with your score. So I took it in June and then September, and I started at law school the following August. I did not do a prep course. I didn't have a tutor or anything like that. I self-studied. I did find a website online that listed 10 books that combined together to make a study packet, and it was all bundled in an Amazon shop, I think. I will find it and link it below on this video because I'm sure I could find it easily. I think it's still bookmarked on my old laptop. But anyways, so I ordered the books, and there were there's 3 sections on the LSAT, and so there was 1 book for each section sort of teaching you how to do it, and then the whole rest of the set, the other 7, were practice books of practice problems, practice tests. Self-studied. I started by reading those big ones. I didn't read them cover to cover. They're big textbook kind of things, but I did skim all of it, and I read the bulk of each whatever. So then, and I took many practice tests. I self-studied, and then I took the LSAT for the first time in June, and okay, there's 4 sections on the LSAT. I forget what the sections are even called. I'm so sorry, but it's been a while. So there's 4 main sections, I think, 3 topics, but one of them you get 2 sections of it, and 3 out of the 4 went awesome. And logic games had been my worst section, and so I had studied so hard for that. I did more games than I ran out of games in my practice books, and logic games went awesome. I was oh my god, could not be going any better. Then it was the 4th section, which was the second of whichever one you have 2 of, and I just remember that this one was a catastrophe. It went so terribly. So I left being okay, you got 3 out of 4 that you felt good about. 1 section was just so terrible. Got my score back. It was, I'm not going to talk scores in this video just because I really don't want to, but it was a fine score. I was great, we are going to law school somewhere. I did feel it was a bit under what I was capable of, which I'm sure is the most common standardized test feeling ever, right? That's what happens to everyone. You get your score back, you're no, I can do better. But I took it in June knowing that there was time to take it again. So then I self-studied again. And I considered getting a tutor and doing a prep course, but I'll talk about that later as far as the benefits of that. Anyways, I didn't. I was actually moving at the time from San Francisco to Arizona, which is where I live now and where I go to law school. And so it just was kind of hectic. Anyways, but in that move, and once I got to Arizona, I studied for this September one, my second one, hard. I got new books. I had to order 3 new practice books because I had used up all of the logic games in my other one, and honestly a lot of the other questions I had already done too. So I ordered a couple of new practice books, and I killed myself studying. In my experience, given my study habits, I don't think I could have self-studied any harder. I was at it. I was at the library all the time. I mean, you could have always studied more, I guess, so I don't want to sit here and say I studied the most I could have ever studied, but I mean, I think I studied really, really hard. Took it in September, and rather than 3 great sections and 1 that was not good at all 4 felt fine. None of them felt great, but all 4 just felt okay. So then it's not surprising when I put it that way, I guess, I got the same score. I was devastated. I literally thought my life was over. I couldn't believe it. I was so upset, oh my god. But then I had to remember that that score was not a bad score. Like I said, I was still gonna be able to go to law school. Considered for a hot sec taking it a 3rd time, but I was not, prep courses and tutors are very expensive, and I did not have the money to spend on them at the time. After going through that, I kind of weighed the risks, and the thought of getting a worse score if I took it a 3rd time terrified me too much to even try, because that will bring down the average if they average your scores. So I was you know what? let's just like call it here, start the application process, that's your score. It took me a while to come to terms with it. I remember being really upset, but then I had to remember, I'm like, you are upset not because this is a bad score, but because you just like thought you could do so much better. Anyways, that was my experience. So as far as how the LSAT factors into your law school admissions, the way I understand it, I don't work in admissions, I just have heard things and I kind of made this up in my head, but I think I'm right. I think that your LSAT score and your GPA combine to give you sort of like an application score. Personal statement might factor in a little bit, I don't know, but those are the two main like stats that they're using, right? In making that score, I do believe that your LSAT counts for a bit more. It definitely does for scholarship money, I think, at most schools. Like a school's way more willing to give money to an LSAT score than they are to a GPA. But I'm pretty sure it matters more just in general. But that's not to say that your GPA doesn't matter. Your undergrad GPA still matters a lot, and it definitely contributes to that like application score, if that's what we're calling it. So it does matter. I just think that it seems like law schools care about LSAT score a little more in the admissions process. But GPA, I've actually been asked about my undergrad GPA in law school in job interview settings. So while the LSAT score seems to pretty much, in my mind, it kind of went away after the admissions process was over, your undergrad GPA does stay with you for longer, and people do want to know about it because it represents a very formative time in your life. So to see sort of how you did there matters. Employers want to see that, potential employers want to see it. So so it does matter, and it matters for other things besides just admissions. But I just, in my experience in admissions, it seemed like the LSAT was given a little more weight than the GPA, I think. I don't know. Like I said, I don't work in this field. If you are considering getting a tutor, taking a prep course, self-studying, if you're trying to figure out what to do, I would say a couple of things. One, know yourself, your standardized test habits. If you, honestly, like it's not that different than the SAT or the ACT that you took to get into undergrad. Look how you did on that. Did you need a tutor for that? Things like that. That might be a pretty good indicator of whether you should seek a tutor or something. So that's something to keep in mind. I know people who had similar experiences to me with tutors, with prep courses, things like that. The biggest study tip I learned if you are self-studying is take practice tests with the answer key, like not even in the room with you. If you go take them at a library or something, don't even bring the answer keys with you, because that was, I think, a big tendency of mine, and I'm sure a lot of people's when they're studying for these, is if you're struggling on a problem, you just go flip to the answer and then you're like, oh yeah, I see why that's the answer. That's way different than just needing to figure out a way to solve the question in real time when you're taking the test. So take practice tests without the answer key anywhere near, so that you force yourself to develop strategies to just get to the end of the question, right? Because it's really tempting to look at the answer keys. So that's a big tip, I think, if you're self-studying, is just take practice tests and do them timed, of course. So just force yourself to be under test-like conditions and answer key nowhere near, and eventually you'll develop a pretty solid strategy of how to navigate through these questions, even the tough ones. You stick to the little routine you've developed and you can get at least to like narrow it down to 2 and guess if you need or something like that. But if the answer key's there, it's just way too tempting to look at it. So that was my LSAT experience. It was not glamorous, but like I said, I haven't thought about it since, which is awesome. And most law schools also offer you a chance to explain your GPA and or your LSAT score, I believe. So if you have anything happen to you or anything, know that law schools aren't like totally blind just looking at a score. You can tell them what happened. If something went on close to the test and it affected your studying or something like that, they're gonna read that. So if your score is not what you want and you actually have a valid reason for why it wasn't maybe what you wanted, write it in your applications. I think every application I had allowed you to offer a little supplement explaining that. So just try to stay positive, try to stay motivated, and if it's I don't know if this helps, but just know that you do not think about it again once you're into law school. Nobody asks about it, nobody talks about it. Like, maybe people talk about it, but no one's ever asked me about it. But thanks so much for watching this video. I hope it helped. If you have any other questions, I can only speak about my experience. I'm not a counselor or an expert in law school admissions, obviously. And I'm still in law school right now, so I'm just like learning as I go. But I hope this helped. If you have any other questions about LSAT or studying or want to know more, let me know. I will link below the group of textbooks I used. I'm sure I can still find the article, and hopefully that helps if you're self-studying. I don't remember it being terribly expensive for that many textbooks. Definitely cheaper than a prep course or a tutor. So Hope that helps, and thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.